everyone, welcome to Nerd Mela. I am Brahmavadini and I have with me Shekhar.
Hello.
As we've been saying for the last few episodes, due to the coronavirus, we are recording our videos over the phone, so the audio might be scratchy here or there. But let's just start with our discussion. So today, as we know, is World Environment Day, which is celebrated every year to encourage action and awareness on environment. And the importance of action and awareness on environment cannot be felt more than now, when most of the world has been forced to stay indoors to deal with the pandemic, which sort of started because humans did not respect nature and its laws. And even more so over the last few years, we have been feeling the effects of environmental disturbance and climate change more closely than ever.
Yeah, we can take the examples of, more recently the flash floods in Meghalaya and Assam, and then we also had the heat wave last year, which
Yeah,
and
which was the most severest.
yeah, almost severest in recent years, and also the monsoon, it too was wetter than expected. And when you're talking about what about feeling the effects of environment changes closely, I think we should mention that during the lockdown period with human beings keeping indoors, we saw a lot of birds coming out and even reports of wildlife sightings in fringe areas. And there were also reports of pollution levels dropping and how the water of Ganga River, it was also much cleaner.
Yeah, so it sort of gives us the idea of how deeply connected all of us are and how our actions have a very direct effect on the environment and vice versa.
Yeah.
And moving forward from this only, uh, so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about two recent events, natural disasters rather, which have taken place over the last few weeks and causing concern in the Indian subcontinent. The first, of course, is Cyclone Amphan, which is said to be one of the fiercest cyclones in the Indian history.
Yeah, the cyclone hit the Indian East Coast on May 20th, and it was said that its speed was around 150 kilometers per hour. Though both rural and urban areas were hit, we have to specifically mention the Sundarbans, which actually suffered the greatest ecological damage.
Yeah, here we should talk about Sundarbans. Sundarbans are mangrove forests, and mangrove forests are a very important ecosystem, and they stand as a line of defense against natural disasters.
Yeah. Yeah, and they are also a very rich source of natural resources. Like we get timber and other forest produce like kevada and cenoraceae from them. And these mangrove areas, they are also very rich in biodiversity as well.
Yeah, and also Sundarbans, they are also a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yeah.
And uh, Sundarbans, they act as a buffer against cyclones. They reduce both the intensity of the strong winds and also the flooding caused by the rise in water levels.
Yeah.
And Sundarbans, when we were talking about the importance of Sundarbans, they are also home to the Bengal tiger and the saltwater crocodile, which corresponds to the point you just said that.
Yeah, rich in biodiversity.
And before this, Cyclone Aila had also devastated the region. So what what we should remember here is that cyclones are common in Bay of Bengal, and they are more frequent in the Bay as compared to the Arabian Sea. But it doesn't mean that every cyclone turns destructive. Some of them just start there and end there only.
Yeah.
Climate change has led to extreme weather conditions and extreme swings in our country and of course the rest of the world as well. And Amphan is a good example of this.
And there is another thing that we should mention here is that aerosols from human-caused air pollution, they can partly reduce the strength of cyclone in various ways. And
Yeah, there was this study that was done recently by some climate experts.
yeah, and it stated that they restrict the amount of sunlight reaching the Earth's surface, thereby cooling it slightly. And this reduction in air pollution may have slightly increased the sea surface temperatures in Bay of Bengal, which is adding to the effect of climate change. And in addition to this, what aerosols also do is that they can make clouds produce rain more easily, which actually limits the formation of cyclones. And all these factors suggest that reduction in air pollution would tend to increase cyclone strength.
So of course the pollution levels in the country were quite low because of the lockdown, the COVID lockdown. And so this study sort of in a way suggests that if there would have been a little pollution, then maybe the impact of Amphan wouldn't have been as much as it was eventually.
Yeah.
But this information or this report cannot be used to justify pollution. It's just a finding, and carbon emissions like this cannot be used to state the importance of pollution.
Yeah.
So as to say, because the disbalance which has been caused by humans will take time to normalize. Here we can look at the data on carbon emissions in the world. Like before industrial revolution in the 19th century, global average carbon dioxide was about 280 parts per million. And the global average carbon dioxide level in 2018 was around 408 parts per million. We came from 370 parts per million. I'm sorry, there are a lot of numbers. We came from 370 parts per million to 408 in the last 2 decades only.
Yeah.
So it's gonna take a while for the earth to reset this way.
But getting back to our discussion over Amphan and the Sundarbans, there is also the issue of rising sea level. And several reports have stated how over the last few decades, cyclones and storms in the region have also been accompanied by alarming rise in sea levels. And these estimates, they say that sea level has risen by an average of 3 centimeter a year for the last 20 years in the Sundarbans. And these numbers, this is the highest rate of sea encroachment anywhere in the world. So basically what we understand is that even before Amphan, the Sundarbans had been facing major effects of climate change, and now with this cyclone it has only aggravated. Besides all this, we currently have no idea about how the cyclone has affected the wildlife in the region as well. So when we look at the current situation in the Sundarbans following Cyclone Amphan, the sustenance of the ecosystem is facing a threat like never before. But if we are to understand the degradation of the ecosystem in the Sundarbans, the role played by human intervention, land erosion, discharge of industrial effluents, and more importantly, climate change is much more significant, which, as has been said, is cause for alarm.
Yes, let's move on to the next event that we are supposed to talk about today, which is the Locust Swarm coming to India, Pakistan, the South Asian region. So we saw the harmful impact of cyclone in the West Bengal region, and now we will try to understand how two cyclones in the last couple of years have caused this another unprecedented natural phenomena, which is the locust swarms. So there has been sighting of swarms of locusts in several parts of Rajasthan, and they've even come to Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. And around first week of April, the first swarms were sighted along the India-Pakistan border, and this is actually months ahead of the usual time of their arrival. And so these are the desert locusts swarms which are destroying crops. Now these desert locusts are known to be the most dangerous pests known to humanity. They belong to the grasshopper family, and they tend to cover a large distance during the day with the help of the wind, and then they rest at night. And they reproduce very, very fast, and almost 20 times in 3 months. But the danger that they pose can be understood by the large amounts of crops that they can consume. Adult locusts can eat their own weight every day, and a swarm can consume vast quantities of food. This will put things into perspective. A large swarm can eat as much as 35,000 people in one day. So just imagine the amount of crops that they would destroy.
So this brings us to the question that why is it happening right now? Several climatologists, they have said that this phenomena is in a way a fallout of climate change. They say that this increasing number of locusts, it can be attributed to changing weather patterns and shrinking wildlife habitats among various other reasons.
Yes, and in Down to Earth, the magazine, desert locust specialist Anil Sharma, he has explained how rainwater had gathered in the desert spanning Saudi Arabia, Oman, and the UAE, and also Yemen. And after it was hit by cyclone Mikunu in May 2018, and what happened as a result of this was that a fertile breeding ground was created for desert locusts. And then later in October that year, the Arabian Peninsula was also hit by another cyclone, Cyclone Luban, which further multiplied the locust population. And then after this, the insects moved eastwards towards Pakistan and India in search of food.
But first we have to understand why these locusts are a cause of concern. These insects, by the way, they are not a new phenomena in India. They usually arrive only from July to October, and not even in such large numbers that we are seeing right now. And even the swarm that arrived in December last year, it was in fact the first to hit India since 1997. But the bigger problem will come once the present swarms breed. And just to explain this problem better, an adult female locust, she lays around 80 to 90 eggs thrice in her 3-month life cycle. And if this breeding is left uncontrolled, a swarm can grow exponentially to about 40 to 80 million locusts per square kilometer.
And after monsoon begins, the locusts will start laying eggs, and
Yeah.
and they will continue to breed for about 2 more months.
Hmm.
This will lead to the rise of newer generations of locusts during the growth phase of the kharif crop in India.
Yeah.
So, and it's not just India. Locusts have hit Africa also. They are also dealing with it, and also Pakistan.
Yeah.
And but when we are talking about the impact in India right now, of course, the locust attack, like we mentioned, is bound to affect the kharif crop cycle, which will start soon.
Yeah.
Besides that, the other problem is that there is no sure shot way of dealing with this situation. One way is to spray pesticides,
Yeah.
but the excessive use of pesticides to deal with these insects will only hurt the ecology of Thar Desert in Rajasthan and the rest of the places. Thar is, of course, one of the regions in India which is most affected by the locust swarms. And of course, once we spray the pesticide, it's going to enter our food cycle and the soil and the crop and the other farm animals. So it's not a solution. And beyond chemicals, pesticides, and drones, it is understandable that we actually need to tackle the root cause, which is global warming and climate change, and invest in upgrading climate resilience and adaptation techniques for agriculture and, of course, for any other development. What we understand is that it's a complex process which will require global cooperation and coordination.
Yeah. And when we talk about cooperation and coordination, that stands true for every global environmental issue.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and there is a need to realize that when we are talking about any development process, we should include environmental planning as well.
Yeah. So, talking about global cooperation only, we also have to take into account the contributions that have been made by the countries over the last few years, last few decades actually, when this has become an important topic.
Yeah.
We can take the example of the basic group, which are the newly industrialized countries of Brazil, South Africa, India, and China, who have sought more contribution in climate change action from the developed countries. There is this very visible north-south divide. The developed countries, they create also more carbon emissions, and they have been doing it for a longer time as compared to the developing countries who actually still have to reach that level. So, of course, it makes sense. When we are talking about the stand that they took internationally, one such instance was back in 2010 when they called for a global agreement on long-term cooperative action under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is very commonly known as UNFCCC. And basically, what they sought was that since it's the developed countries, like I mentioned just now, who contribute higher carbon emissions, they must pay for the developing countries, which basically gives the sense that all the countries have to cooperate and come up with sustainable solutions and prioritize climate change, global warming, and environment actually.
Yeah.
And such a cooperation is largely in line with this year's World Environment Day theme, which is time for nature, that we must work together to support all life on Earth and also human development.
Yeah. And while we speak of global cooperation, we must also talk about India. Because, like, when you and me, we were kids in the 90s and early 2000s, we did not witness many natural calamities. Maybe the ones most fresh in our memories would be the 2001 Gujarat earthquake or the 2004 tsunami in the southern coast. But ever since the Kedarnath floods in 2013, India has been witnessing successive calamities. We can just take a look at the case of Kerala. First in 2017, we saw Cyclone Amphan strike the state. Then next 2 years, we saw successive floods. And it was said that such occurrence, it was a once in a 10,000 years possibility.
Yeah, and it's important to note here that India as a civilization is not even 10,000 years old. So we can understand what the scale of the calamity is.
Yeah. And then there was also a report published in 2019, the Climate Risk Index report. It was published by a think tank called German Watch. It assessed the vulnerability of nations to climate change. And in that index, India ranked fifth as far as vulnerability of countries to climate change was concerned. And the report, it had particular focus on the death and destruction caused by heavy rainfall, flooding, and landslides from 2017 to 2018.
Yeah, and another example that we can take is up India's north. We have the Siachen Glacier, which is part of the Hindu Kush Himalayan range, and this region has been facing the brunt of climate change for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And then there's another report that was published by the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development (ICIMOD) in 2019, and this report says. This was a report on the Hindu Kush Himalayan region only, and it stated that even if the global temperature rise by 2100 is capped at 1.5 degree Celsius, which by the way is very unlikely that it would happen, 35% of the glaciers in the region would retreat by then. As a result of this, there would be change in monsoon season in the region, and this would increase, there would be increased flooding of rivers.
Yeah.
And this is a process. It won't happen it's not like in 2100 when the entire glacier would just melt. It's a process. So
Yeah.
It's already happening, and the problem will aggravate further. And if we don't act quickly, we could soon become another group of people that would mourn over the loss of a giant glacier, just like the people of Iceland did in 2019.
Yeah, after a glacier called Okjokul melted due to climate change.
Yeah, and from all this, what we can understand is that global cooperation, what we've said again and again, is the way forward for any climate change action. And but as of now, the question again comes up that what we can do as citizens.
Again, as we mentioned earlier, it is a very complex process. But the thing is, we can try to find an answer in some lifestyle changes.
We've already seen that during the COVID pandemic, we have brought about drastic changes in our lifestyle. So it's not like that human beings are not like we can't go back or we can't make some change, some alteration in our lifestyle that would benefit the nature. The biggest example of this would be the Project Ganga, Namami Gange. It has been going on for so many years, even before that, not just this government, even before this, the Ganga cleaning project has been going on for a very long time. And we see that there is only one solution to the problem, that do not dump waste in the water and it will get cleaner. Again, it's a process and we have to start immediately, and things will change. If staying indoors for 2 months has benefited the environment so much, then of course, let's not all stay indoors all the time, but yes, bring about positive lifestyle changes like, say for example, not consuming water guzzling crops, but instead opting for locally grown crops.
Or better home designs.
Yeah, energy efficient architecture.
Yes.
Like higher ceilings. There are other, of course, examples of such architecture as well.
Yeah, and of course we can go back to our traditional methods of water conservation, such as rainwater harvesting and other various methods.
Most importantly, we know that when time comes, we can change our lifestyle and work towards respecting the authority of nature. And irrespective of pandemic or not, we must do that with the same urgency as we are showing right now, because this is an urgent situation. We cannot afford to lose more time.
Yeah.
With this, we end our conversation for today. Thanks for watching. You can follow us on Twitter. And please remember to like, share and subscribe. I am Brahma.
And I'm Shekhar.
Stay tuned for more.
Bye.